Let's go. We begin the chapter 5. Recombination of DNA of Japanese medical anthropology. The story that I have mentioned above is not value-free, vertical height, not nor real, but deviated or decentered. We may read or listen to the fictional, fictive, like Roman picturesque. It seems very difficult to explain the early period of making Japanese medical anthropology. So I recommended that you suspect if I have publicated the story. And also, you may use your own imagination to read any kind of fabulous story, including medical anthropology. There is a reason why I used a historical anecdote. Now, I summarize the two major limitations of our critical medicine project mentioned below. Number one, a priori critique against biomedicine. We borrowed the relativistic concept from medical humanities as tools of critique against biomedicine. Because we focused on only negative aspect of biomedicine, we could automatically made the begging the question error, petit principiti. In evaluating naturally biomedicine, our images, evaluating naturally biomedicine, we could not consider the alternative our images of biopsychosocial medicine can be still poor. We loved the critique that did not to look at realities of biomedicine, as it had transformed during over 30 years. Biomedicine has the potential to become an oppressive institution on the one hand, but some aspects, patient and are possible to tame biomedicine to guarantee their own survival probabilities, even as we have their own limitation. Needless to say, today we should treat our analysis of biomedicine more dramatically. Second, need for ethnographies of various types of ethnomedicines. We always insisted on the importance of holism when we taught in the classroom, but our holism images diverge in detail. Our image of biomedicine is monolithic on the one hand, while the images of ethnomedicines relatively is broad on the other hand. Both are stereotyped images. We need more ethnographic conceptual enrichment in ethnomedicine. We have to inquire again that what is medical anthropology is. We sometimes define that medical anthropology is anthropological study of health and illness. But in our society, biomedicine and the medicalization process are very influential today. We cannot ignore or neglect the biomedical presence in a modern life. We problem in which we aspect of biomedicines evokes universality on the one hand, and which aspect of biomedicine diversifies locally on the other. we can use biomedical knowledge when we analyze biomedicine itself. I wonder how our relativistic sense fosters when we analyze biomedicine by using biomedical epistemic tools. Another aspect I question is which kind of radicalism is medical anthropology? For discussing profoundly, I borrow his concept of crippled gears articles, buried journals, the refiguration of social soft in his book, Local Knowledge, published in 1983. Needless to say, medical anthropology seems to be taking position of the interdisciplinary genre between anthropology and medicine. According to inspiration of Kenneth's book, A Grammar of Motifs, published in 1945, the problem should be understood how both agents, so to say, an anthropologist and a medical scientist interact. What is context of the scene, which agency is mediated between them, and what purpose they expect. This is a reason why I would like to say that medical anthropology is buried genre. At least modern medical anthropologists share epistemologically the belief that this challenge field can be transgressive area between anthropology and the medical sciences with their creativities. Students of each side can also share ontologically the other partners' methodologies for analyzing their own topics. These situations can be understood using metaphor of dialogue between anthropology and medical sciences. But the problem is what kind of dialogue can be possible in this case. Even though both inhabitants look like neighbors, they use different language and live in different culture. How many years do we have medical anthropologists? Our field was actually accumulated huge studies for more than 30 years. Somebody says etymologically, what we have more than 50 years of tradition. In North America, and even in Japan and other East Asian countries, medical anthropology is one of the most popular disciplines. So we can say this area is a sunset industry. But I think that the true crisis is to be satisfied by our own mind, not to challenge it, to participate in controversy with their discipline. Our critical medicine studies group, the Maoist, respect North American colleagues who published in Medical Anthropology newsletter from 1970 to November 1982. We decided to publish our newsletter entitled Newsletter Medical Anthropology in 1988 in Osaka. Unfortunately, we confronted the problem ourselves with mannerism more than financial problem. We experienced the newly emerging similar academic areas, medical anthropology, for example, medical sociology, bioethics, and so on. We had to stop publish newsletter. Our final volumes, number 21, volume 4, number 6. in 1996. That was final stages of the academic voluntary groups of medical anthropology, the Maoist. Medical anthropology is popular among Japanese as well as between North America and Europeans. But today, there is not academic voluntary group in Japan. What are the differences between them? We cannot explain it by population. Last year, I advised a young medical anthropologist to organize a studying group within the Japanese Society of Cultural Anthropology, JASCA. I have a new dream that the medical anthropologists in the world are able to disseminate anthropological knowledge and its use to solve human problems. What should medical anthropologists and anthropologists do now? The popular images of medical anthropology in 1980s had still been buried genre. The buried genre is ambivalent, potentially provocative, and critical. I remember that we should reread Professor Locke's articles on resisting against becoming good wife and wise mother, including reconsiderations of Japanese social and political atmosphere. I assert some agenda that this article made important for us. The article can be interpreted as a message to Japanese and accomplished medical anthropologists on how to make an anthropological critique according to concrete ethnological issues. Second, some stereotyped should disease levels for Japanese women can be understood not as psychosomatic biomedical disorder, but as a cultural representation that indicates that the personality of Japanese women in the medicalization process. The article made the strong tradition gender identity visible. This ideology could be maintained not only by traditional conservative, but also by women themselves. And fourth, the article does not depend on a cultural determinist approach, but present the potential possibilities that can be empower to women by representing them as a subject of resistance. Needless to say, the Japanese women, good wife and wise mother ideology has been criticized as statecraft by many feminist scholars. Through Professor Locke, representation of Japanese women as partaking in a performative practice which has adapted by medicalization of women, she can propose that women have the potential to dislocate and self-question. A new identity as an autonomous subject apart from the state ideology of good wife and wise mother, even if they are still maintaining this stereotype. When I reread Locke Sensei old paper at this time, I encouraged myself by her productive power, the force of maintaining buried genre. It is important to imagine historically the critical support of this buried genre. It is important to imagine historically critical aspect of this buried genre, medical anthropology, because the etymology of evolution means rolling back to ideal past. Remember, Jedi Master's frame, may the medical anthropology be with you. Thank you for your attention.